Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, I have a question for you, Jeff.
Yeah?
How was your Halloween?
Ooh, it was extra spooky, I hope.
I hope. Yeah, the joke is that we're recording this shortly before Halloween. So
right, yeah.
We don't know yet. Hopefully, listeners, your Halloween was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that mine was wonderful as well. But I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but I got that day off work. So
nice. Oh, cool.
So by the time this comes out, hopefully I will have had a nice, relaxing day at home, maybe carving some pumpkins, watching some scary movies, and
playing some God of War.
Well, playing some God of War. Okay, I was going to get to that a little later, but yeah. So, getting into the Thanksgiving season, because this is November now, I'm thankful for the game God of War 2018 for PlayStation 4. This game is amazing. Like, I went in almost completely blind. I've played basically all of the God of War games before. I haven't played God of War Ascension, but I've 100%ed all of the other ones. Mm-hmm. And I was never crazy about them. Sure, yeah, I 100%ed like 5 of the games in the series, but they were never great. They basically just made me want to play Devil May Cry.
Sure.
I just felt like they were kind of watered down Devil May Cry in almost every regard.
Shots fired.
Shots fired, I know. But I had heard only that this game was really good. I didn't know anything about it except that it is really good. In fact, for the longest time, I thought it was a reboot. I didn't realize it was a sequel. But anyway, I got it a few weeks ago. I started playing it, and it is amazing.
Uh-huh.
Like, I think it might be my favorite game of all time. I'll wait and see when I haven't beaten it yet. I'll make sure the ending doesn't like take a huge dump on itself or something.
Right.
But it is so good. The gameplay is so good, whereas I felt like the gameplay in all the previous ones was very lackluster. It was basically just mash a button, hit all the enemies on the screen until they're dead, and then go on and do a quick time event.
Right, yeah.
And whereas this one is very obviously Dark Souls inspired. It's not exactly Dark Souls. It's not exactly Dark Souls, but it is. You can very much tell the DNA that, came over from Dark Souls. But it's not just the gameplay. The gameplay is amazing. Mm-hmm. But like, if you had told me 10 years ago that there was going to be a God of War game that made me genuinely care about the characters and their growth and their journey, I would have told you, no, you are lying. Get out of my house. It's 2018. It's 2008.
What are you doing here?
What are you doing here? Exactly. So
who let you into this house?
I'm trying to think of a 2008 music reference, but I'm not doing a. Hey man, go listen to some Gangnam Style and get out of here. Was Gangnam Style out in 2008?
Ooh, good question. I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
No, I don't think it was.
I'll say I invented it in 2008. So get out of my house and go listen to this new hit single that I made. I'm going to go promote it in Korea. Anyway, so God of War, it's so good. I'm not really going to say much else, just that it is so much fun. The story is so good. The gameplay is so good. I don't want to stop playing. In fact, I was kind of up until 8:30 in the morning last night playing it. But anyway.
Yeah, he's got bags under his eyes. It's crazy.
I do.
And he's got a full beard now too, just like
Kratos. Yeah. I've got a son that follows me around everywhere now.
No, that's your dog. You just call him Boy now.
I do. I should. I really should.
Just start calling him Boy.
So anyway, I'm back on. So enough about God of War. Other than I'll just say, everybody, if you have a PS4 or access to a PS4, play it. And if you don't have access to a PS4, watch a playthrough of it. It is so good. Anyway, on the topic of tabletop gaming, several weeks ago, we had Paulo Quiros from the Film Reroll podcast on our show. Mm-hmm. They just released an episode at this recording. It was a few days ago, so by now it was a little longer than that. But every Halloween, so 2 years ago when they had first started, if I'm remembering correctly, 2 years ago they did the movie Halloween as a game in GURPS, and it of course went fairly differently from the movie. Then the following year, so last year, they did a sequel to their version of Halloween. Mm-hmm. So it was not Halloween 2, it was their own sequel. This year, I guess they weren't sure if they were going to have enough time to get everybody together to record like another Halloween movie. But instead what they did was freaking amazing. I will sing the praises of this forever. So Paulo, I guess they recorded this a while ago. So like they didn't know that he didn't tell them that they were going to be recording the movie that they were recording. He told them that they're going to be playing an obscure 80s movie called Summer Spell, is what he called it. He told them that it is a coming of age teen romance comedy.
Okay.
And he told them, don't look it up. I want you to go in as fresh as possible. Mm-hmm. He made them all character sheets, and he even like made like love mechanics for this game.
Okay.
So like the players have like stats determining how much they like each other, and certain actions will either increase or decrease love. Supposedly there's even like sex mechanics, but they didn't. The only time that it might have happened, one of the characters was unable to perform, so it didn't go anywhere. So only I guess it was one session. They split into 2 episodes. Only the first episode is out so far. So nothing really crazy has happened. It's just kind of been like a fun teen romp, and the players are getting really into their characters. However, the movie that they are actually playing through is Friday the 13th Part 4. Oh. Which is actually my favorite Friday the 13th movie. So, I mean, there's a disclaimer right at the beginning of the episode. I'm not spoiling anything by telling you this. Mm-hmm. But at the time, the players did not realize that they were playing through Friday the 13th. And I guess the idea was that if he told them they were playing through Friday the 13th, then they wouldn't take their characters seriously. They wouldn't like try to establish their characters. Sure. Because they would just think, oh, we're all going to die anyway. Yeah. So instead, he lied to them about what movie this was. And, he didn't lie about any of the content of the movie. He mentioned that one of the players' characters was played by Crispin Glover, and one of the NPCs was played by a young Corey Feldman, and all the characters have the names they had in the movie, and he made all sorts of references from the movie, but nobody has caught on yet. Right. By the end of the first episode. Again, Jason hasn't shown up yet, I guess is what I'm getting at. But it's just, oh my goodness, it's so much fun to listen to, because it's like, I want to listen to the other half right now. Hopefully by the time that this episode comes out, their episode will be out and I can listen to it. But at the moment, I'm like, biting on my fingers because I want to listen to the whole thing. It's so good. Anyway, so if you have not checked out the film Reroll, it is so much fun. Go check it out right now. Listen to at least the first half of Friday the 13th or Summer Spell, whatever the heck Summer Spell is. That's pretty good. Yeah. So anyway, I guess that's all I got to talk about at the moment. You got anything else? No. Okay. Let's go ahead and get into this episode. Yeah. So Jeff, you are you're laying on your couch. Okay. Your stomach is extending out about 3 or 4 feet. Because you've got chocolate melted all over your face. Oh, yeah. You've got an entire Twix stuck to your hand. You were holding it and you picked up the remote and you didn't feel like putting it. It just melted on your hand. It's just stuck there. It's just there. And you're... There's a pile of like golden wrappers. Yes. You've got so many calories going through your veins right now, but you see that there's still so much candy left. Oh man. And you reach over and you try to grab another thing, but before you can, you reach over for this bag of candy, and as you do, somebody slaps your hand. Oh. Hey. And you look over and you see it is an individual that is about 30 feet tall. With red scales. Who keeps letting these into my house? However, this individual is wearing a sweatband around his head. It's wearing shorts. It's wearing a t-shirt that does not come nearly low enough. Okay. And they've got a heart rate monitor thing on their smartphone on their arm, and you feel the ground shaking. You felt that a moment ago. You thought it was an earthquake, or maybe it was my stomach rumbling. I thought I was gonna say maybe you're having a heart attack. You're not sure. Oh no! So the ground is shaking a little bit, and you realize it's because this 30-foot tall red dragon is like jogging in place, and then you look at the calendar and you see that it's like, I don't know, November. It's November 1st. I'll say it's November 1st. Yeah. You realize that this was the day that you were supposed to start that exercise regime. Oh, and no. This 30-foot tall individual, it's my personal trainer. Your personal trainer sort of taps you on the shoulder and says, "You better get up because we're running to the dragon's horde."
But that's like 4 miles away. Ugh. Oh, can't we just start tomorrow?
In case it was not obvious, I had no clue where I was going with that. I got there about halfway through.
It was that intro was a workout.
It was a mental workout. Yeah. So anyway, our item today was submitted by Avonchill via email, and the item is called the Mantle of Hanami. I think that's how that'd be pronounced.
Hanami.
Like Konami, except it's spelled very different. We've actually had this on our list for a while, but we've had a good amount of submissions lately. So I've
been trying to cycle through.
Yeah, because we got this along with the Sakura Blade, I think it was called, several weeks ago. So I wanted to put some time between those two. Anyway, this magic item, it's a wondrous item. It is rare. It requires attunement. This is an article of nobility usually presented by Lord Kyoraku himself. It immediately distinguishes anybody wearing it in the region of Hanami. This refined overcoat appears to have been weaved together from falling sakura petals themselves. Ooh. So cherry blossom petals.
Pretty.
Created by the most talented seamstresses and enchanted by the most powerful of magic weavers, this overcoat is not all it seems. This mantle has 2 charges. You gain a +2 bonus to AC and saving throws while you wear this mantle. And the mantle has 2 abilities. I believe each one takes 1 charge. I don't know if it says when the charges come back. Let's say the charges come back every dawn or something. Anyway, so the first ability is called Sakura Shroud. You can use 1 charge as an action to cast out your mantle, which bursts into a flurry of sakura petals swirling around the wearer to a radius of 10 feet. So you whip off your coat, you swing it around you, and it just, boom, turns into a big old, it's like you're in a snow globe.
Sure.
There's little petals floating around everywhere. Every creature within the radius suffers disadvantage on all attack rolls against the wearer, and the duration is 1 minute. So you whip off your coat, it explodes into these petals, and everyone goes to attack you, but, oops, you're not there, you're over here.
Right.
So that one's pretty cool. Again, that takes up 1 charge. Then the second ability is Sakura Edge. You can use 1 charge as an action to cast the Cloud of Daggers spell, in which the mantle bursts into a swarm of tiny pink blades.
Ooh.
You can also move the swarm of blades as an action up to 20 feet in any direction, but it may not go more than 30 feet from your character. This is a concentration-based ability like the spell. This ability follows all rules of the listed spell with the exception of the movement of the blades, just with the added flavor of the spell taking the form of sakura petal blades.
Neat.
So yeah, again, you whip off your jacket, you toss it into the air, it turns into these little blades, it turns into these petals, except these ones have blades on them.
Right.
So they come down, they start slicing everybody up. And that's what it does. Like I said, it doesn't say in the description here, but I'll say that you get those 2 charges back every dawn.
Cool. Yeah. So and use a casting of Cloud of Daggers, and then what is it? Is it obscure or is it?
It's not. It doesn't seem to be based off a specific spell, but basically
they get disadvantage.
Everybody gets disadvantage within 10
cool.
feet.
Awesome. That's pretty cool.
It's really cool. I do really like the theming. I also like how it's not just like a cloak; it's an overcoat. And I think it's an important distinction. I think that a lot of players might imagine their characters wearing something a little bit more modern than like a cloak.
Right.
So an overcoat, you could think of like Dante from Devil May Cry or something like that,
sure,
whipping off his coat and turning into a big cloud of daggers that slices everybody up.
Or like a sweet trench coat from the Matrix or something.
Yeah.
But it's made out of the pink petals.
Yeah.
Sewn together with like the golden silk of like silkworms or something. I don't know.
Sure.
To get all fancy about
it. No, I think it's pretty cool. The abilities are pretty good. The first one's pretty good defensively. It makes everybody have disadvantage.
Yep.
Second one, Cloud of Daggers is a pretty good spell. I mean, it's like an area damage. It's a fairly small area, but it's good for like area denial. So if there's like a little bottleneck in the battlefield, put that there, and then nobody can get through without taking damage.
Little side thing, the adventure I had yesterday. Skylar was playing a cleric and her friend James was playing a warlock.
Okay.
There are two spells that they used together that were actually quite effective.
Really?
There's a warlock spell called Hunger of Hadar, I think it's called.
Yes.
You create a sphere of darkness that what it did is like it makes everything within that sphere difficult terrain, but it's a sphere, so flying things still counts as difficult terrain.
That's
because
really
it's
good.
like this void filled with like tentacles and stuff.
Yeah.
Does damage to them at the beginning of the round, and if they end that in that round, they take more damage if they fail a save. And then Skylar used a cleric spell. I think it was just called like Spirit Guardians.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is
I know
just
that
another area effect that like it doesn't give difficult terrain, but it just halves everything's speed. So those two together,
no,
and it's anything within the area, and it's a sphere as well. So like I had a bunch of like specters fighting them, and I was like, oh, okay, these won't affect them. And then I read that I was like, no, this does affect them. This really affects them because like their 50 flying speed is cut in half.
Yeah.
And then it's considered difficult terrain, so they can only move like 10, 15 feet. So I was like, oh, and then they're taking damage in the meantime.
Sure. Yeah, that's a pretty good combo right there.
So
I thought it was just going to be like Eldritch Blast with Concussive Blast, or whatever that knocks them back, and then something that deals area damage. But anyway, that's even better.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Anyway, so yeah, I think this item is pretty cool. Again, like the theming, like the mechanics. You know, not really much else to say about it. I guess it's pretty cool. I like it. All right. Well, I guess so that was the Mantle of Hanami submitted by Avenshil. That'll do it for the Dragon's Hoard. If anybody wanted to submit Dragon's Hoard items to us, or questions for us to discuss, or stories for the funeral pyre, Jeff, how would they do that?
They could do that by sending us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com.
Yep. And before we get to the questions today, as always, we have a giveaway today. And before we get to the giveaway, I just want to say, like, we are dangerously low on submissions. So seriously, people, send us an email and you'll get a free adventure from Goblin Stone.
Right.
It's that easy. It's really, really easy. So anyway, as I said, Goblin Stone is providing this free adventure for us today called Chapel on the Cliffs. It is a low-level adventure for 5th edition characters. And our winner today, Jeff, is...
Our winner today is Aaron R.
Winner. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Yes, congratulations, Aaron. You should be getting that in your email pretty soon, so let us know if you don't. And be sure to let Goblin Stone know what you think so they can continue to make great products.
Cool.
All right. And Jeff, if anybody wanted to enter this drawing, how would they do that?
They can send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com with the subject line Chapel on the Cliffs.
Yes, it's very, very easy, so please send us some emails and enter this drawing so we have somebody to give it to. All right, and I also want to tell everybody to go check out our Patreon. We have Patreon at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. If you don't know what Patreon is an online service where you can pledge to donate some money to us every month. Could be as little as $1 a month, you know. That's like nothing. That's like 25 cents an episode. Or if you want to give more, $5 a month, $10 a month, $100,000 a month. I don't know. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed. We do have a goal for $100,000 a month.
Right. Yeah.
Have I ever told you about that, Jeff?
I saw it.
Okay. Yeah.
Give me a good chuckle. Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, cool stuff could happen if we ever reach the $100,000 a month mark. But for anybody who can't afford to give us $100,000 a month, $1 a month, it's like nothing.
Right.
And it helps out the show. It gets you some cool bonus content. And, you know, it's really cool. Yeah. Well, so we've got bonus episodes for $5 up a month or more. We've got fantasy fiction for everybody. We've got outtakes for everybody. We've got a monthly Roll20 game, which actually, like, the day after this is recorded, Jeff is going to be running the game that month. So
yeah, it's my first dive into running an adventure, and like I'll say it's actually my first, because anyone before that really doesn't count. I was very young, so
sure.
So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So actually, by the time this episode comes out, anybody who was there for the game will know how it went.
We'll know how it went, and we'll know why Jeff has secluded himself For years to come.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm sure you'll do just fine.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will have done just fine,
Okay.
Jeff. Yeah. So cool. We've got cool rewards on there on our Patreon. So check that out. And hey, if you can't afford, or you just don't donate to stuff like that, that's fine. Just tell a friend, or give us a rating or review on iTunes or whatever. Anything that can help us get to more listeners.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, more. Even if they're not going to be donated, it's like more viewers means more submissions, which means more content, which means that we can keep doing this because we like it.
Yeah. So check out our Patreon. Also, there are 2 other podcasts you should check out. You should check out Crit Academy at critacademy.com. It's a great podcast where the hosts create new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. They've got player tips every episode. They've got DM tips every episode, character concepts, encounter concepts, magic items, monster variants, and that's in addition to their main topic, which changes up every week. So they've got some great episodes on there. They've been interviewing some content creators from the DMs Guild. Great stuff. Great podcast. You guys should go and check them out immediately. Also, another great podcast you should check out is D&D Character Lab, where Garen and Dan, they debate whose characters are better. Every week they make interesting characters with backstories and unique abilities and so on, and then they debate whose character is better. And by this point, I'm almost positive that there will have been a great episode where 2 very handsome hosts from another gaming podcast called InterPartyConflict were on, and we won, I guess, is the important thing.
Oh, that's true. Right. Yeah. But hopefully that will have come out by the time
if it isn't, I'll cut this part out, but I'm sure that episode will be out by this point. Woo! So go check them out. We were just on their show. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So great 2 other great podcasts in addition to our great podcast. So check us all out. Leave us all reviews. Give everybody a 5-star review. Go do it.
Yes.
You want to get into this in this episode?
Yeah, let's go. All right. Our first question comes from Jolly Wolf, and this was on Reddit. What have your players done that made you proud to be a GM?
Yeah. So I have one specific example, a very recent example, and I figure this would probably be a quick, short one, but there's a couple things.
Okay.
As a DM, I've been, something I realized the other day, Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, I just a few days ago we had our D&D game at the library. I do a monthly D&D game at the local library, mainly with the intention of teaching new players how to play. We don't always get new people. Like we have a few people that show up, most of the time, but we do occasionally get new people. And a few months ago, there were these 2 guys that started coming. They didn't know each other. I think one of them had played 3.5 or something like that, and then the other one I don't think had ever played D&D before. I could be wrong. Their names are Julian and Spencer. Mm-hmm. They showed up. They came to a couple of the games. Fun guys. They I actually hung out with them a little bit after one of the games. One of them lives right around the corner from the library. So after the game, Steve and I were there. So we went and hung out with them for a few minutes before I drove Steve home.
Cool.
And then they stopped coming to the game. And at first I was a little confused because it seemed like they were having a great time. I was wondering why they stopped coming. I hadn't seen them in a couple months. And then I just found out it's because they started their own game.
Oh, well, cool.
And that's what they didn't know each other. And now the 2 of them are really good friends.
Awesome.
They're really good friends and they're playing a game together. And that makes me proud to be a DM. It's great to have a great set of players, but if you get a player that then splits off to go start his own thing, I feel like that's one of the biggest honors a DM can get.
Right. And that is one of the main goals of you doing the monthly thing at the library, is to get more people introduced to D&D, and then that is a success story right there. It's they came in and we're like, yeah, this is fun. Let's do this regularly. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I do want to, if I could, just for a couple minutes, talk about this session that we had. It was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. We had, so there's Justin, not Crit Academy Justin, but I guess Library Justin is what I call him. this other friend of ours named Justin. He's an older gentleman that has just, within the last year or so been doing all these things he never did as a kid, and he got into playing D&D. So he started playing D&D at the library. So I've been teaching him how to play and everything. He's one of our patrons. And so he was there. He's there at most of the sessions, not all of them, but most of them. Our friend Steve was there. There's a guy named Chris who's been he's been coming pretty consistently for the last 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. And it was those 3. And then we had a girl show up that had never played any sort of role-playing game before. I think she was in her 20s. I could be wrong. But, she heard that there was going to be D&D at the library, and she thought, I've never played it before. I'll go see what this is.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Yeah. And, she sounded like she said she'll be coming back next month, so hopefully she had a good time.
Yeah.
You know, I tried my best to accommodate her, engage her as much as possible. So I think that seems pretty promising. But also, a little while after we started playing, we'd been playing for maybe like 20 minutes. A much older gentleman who's probably in his like 60s showed up. And he pops his head in and he says, oh, is this Dungeons and Dragons? And we're like, oh, yeah, come on over, have a seat. And I asked him if he had ever played D&D before. He said no. I asked him if he had ever seen like Lord of the Rings before. He said no. And he said something. He was like, this isn't like a cult or anything, is it? and I had to be like, no, absolutely not. It's a storytelling game. I had him sit right next to me. I think he was more interested in just being like a spectator rather than a player.
Sure.
But, I had pre-made characters, so I handed him a character and I did like ask him a couple things like, oh, what's your character going to do? And so on. He didn't stay very long. He stayed for maybe like 15 minutes. But, I shook his hand. I told him, thank you for coming. I said, we do this every month. So if you want to come back again, you can. I hope he does show up again.
Right, yeah.
Maybe he won't. He probably won't. But
sure,
if he does, that would be really cool. I would definitely consider that a proud to be a DM moment, because it's someone who clearly like has no knowledge of any of this.
Right. Probably
no context for what this even is.
Sure.
But he was still willing to come. He was still willing to see. And I think that's really cool. This may be me projecting or whatever, but like I'm wondering if maybe he was part of a church group that somebody said something about D&D being part of a cult or something. And he saw, the local library is going to be doing this. Let me go see if it is a cult or not.
Yeah. It's like his son or grandson or something is getting into it.
I didn't even think of that. That might be.
He was kind of scoping it out, be like, oh yeah, it's just a game. Sure.
Yeah. And hopefully I gave a good representation of, hey, we're just sitting around. I'm telling a story. They're engaging in the story themselves.
Right.
Now, of course, Justin has a very particular sense of humor that might have gone kind of contrary to me trying to express that this is just a normal, innocent game. But whatever, he's having a good time.
Yeah.
We're all having a good time. So
you gotta let Justin be Justin.
Exactly. Now, but in this game, because it was the October game, so I like to make my October games a little bit spooky if I can. Well, this was very much inspired by something we talked about in a recent episode. In this game, I had the players, they had been hired to go retrieve some treasure that a dragon had stolen or something like that. They go into the woods, they see some tracks of like some small humanoids, and they hear some creatures talking in Goblin, but they're like hiding behind a rock. So the players know that they're there. And then the players like rush into attack, and then these creatures jump out, except then I described them as kobolds and not goblins. And the players were like, "Oh, do you mean goblins?" And I was like, "Oh no, they're kobolds." And then the fight goes on. The players kill them all pretty easily. As the new player, the girl, she was playing a warlock. She shot a couple times. She shot an attack. She shot her Eldritch Blast and rolled a natural. She rolled several natural ones.
Oh, geez.
She was using the dice that somebody donated to the library. So I'm going to blame whoever donated those dice probably as trying to ruin our game by donating some weighted dice. Exactly.
Yeah.
So she rolled a natural one, and so I described her Eldritch Blast. She goes to fire an Eldritch Blast, but instead like a flower comes out. And, maybe her patron is like mad at her or something like that. But anyway, she finishes off the final goblin. As she does, I had everybody roll a wisdom saving throw or something like that. And not everybody, I think one of the players succeeded. Everybody else, that passed out, just like fell to the ground. The player that stayed conscious saw everything around them, the ground, the sky, the trees, everything turned to like bright rainbow colors. And suddenly up in the sky was like a sinister scarred face looking down, holding out like a glove with like strings coming from it. Like they're like doing like a marionette type thing. Next thing they know, everybody wakes up in town. They're back in town, except it's completely empty. There's nobody anywhere. And so the warlock, she said that she was going to she was the urchin background, which has the thing that lets you like navigate a city really easily.
Yeah.
So I had mentioned like, because they'd asked if there were any landmarks. I was like, oh yeah, the town hall, which is like where you got the job. Town hall is like you can see the like the spire on top of Town Hall. You can see it off in the distance. And so they went in that direction, except somehow they got lost. They weren't in front of Town Hall. They were in front of like this tavern. There's like a big statue up on top of the tavern that was very recognizable. And so they're like, oh, well, we're still trying to get to Town Hall. So they went in. Oh, there's Town Hall over there. They went in the direction of Town Hall. They get to Town Hall, except it has the statue on top that the tavern had. And then they were like, you know, is there anything weird about our surroundings? And I mentioned that, well, you notice that as you're going through town, you know, okay, there's the jerky shop, there's the cobbler, there's the tailor, there's the jerky shop again, there's the cobbler, there's the tailor, and then it was just like the same businesses repeating over and over and over again. And so they went into they decided, okay, we're going to go inside this tavern or town hall or whatever, this tavern hall. So they went inside, and there's jerky hanging up everywhere. And there's a guy standing behind the counter with like an apron on. He's like facing away from them doing something. They get his attention. He turns around, and he's a kobold on stilts holding a shoe in his hand. And then they go and interrogate him, and one of the players notices that this kobold is actually a goblin wearing a kobold mask. And then they attacked him or something like that. They got into a fight, and then Steve's character was a paladin, so he went to cast Bless on everybody. Yeah. And I wrote down on a little note, I was like, okay, so you're saying your like magic words to cast Bless, and as you say it, you recognize the words that you're saying are not what you usually say. And I handed it to him, and on the note, what?
Sorry, go ahead.
On the note were the words, "Wake up."
Oh.
And then he that freaked him out a little bit. And he said that he told me he would like to communicate this to the rest of the party. And so when he did, I told him, okay, you go to say that, but what comes out is, and then I did my patented little goblin speak thing. So what comes out is,
that's what that was what I was laughing at. I was like, is it going to be that he's speaking in
right? And I mean, there were other weird things too, but like they attacked this goblin. He turned into this weird, like basically Freddy Krueger type individual. And while this is going on, like everything keeps being like flower themed. Like whenever somebody misses with an attack, like they swing a flower or something instead. Although there was one, here's another thing I did. Every time one of the players jokingly said something they were gonna, or said something was there. Like at one point, Justin, when this goblin or kobold or whatever turned into this Freddy Krueger figure, he joked about like, oh, is his breath really bad? And I was like, oh yeah, roll a save against his bad breath. And then, he rolled a save, and he rolled like a natural 20. So I was like, okay, you do vomit because of his bad breath, but instead of vomit, your axe flies out of your mouth and hits the guy. And there was like, when the older gentleman that showed up, and I tried to engage with him for a little bit, I asked him, oh, what do you want to do? When they were navigating town. And he was like, I don't know. I want to hop on a bike and ride around. And so I was like, okay, yeah, you look around. There's a bike, even though this would not fit this setting at all. There's a bike. I was trying to, every time a player like suggested something, even as a joke,
right,
it was there.
Right.
And so basically the players were in a dream. They killed the bad guy. He exploded in a big thing of flowers. And then when they came to, they were in the clearing where they fought the goblins, except they were like laying in a big thing of flowers that had gotten this pollen all over them. And then they had all passed out and had a hallucination from the things.
Was it the poppies from Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, sure. Why not? And then when they had killed the bad guy like grabbed one of the characters and like just like grabbed him on the shoulder. And then when they woke up, the glove was like sitting on the ground. So it's like, ooh, was it a dream or was it not? Ooh. So anyway, I was trying to channel Nightmare on Elm Street a little bit in the in this D&D game, but I was using a lot of things we talked about in the Dreams episode. Oh yeah. I tried to give details and then change those details subtly. Right. I tried making it so that anytime a character said something that wouldn't normally fit, I made it fit. I tried to incorporate every suggestion the players had into the game as much as possible, because it's like, if one of them had said, I want there to be a gun or something, I would have been like, yep, there's a gun. You don't know what it is, but there's a gun. Yeah. So I was trying to let the players create the environment as much as possible. I didn't know I was going to be doing the whole flowers thing until I jokingly was like, yeah, you shoot an Eldritch Blast and it shoots a flower instead. But then a little ways into the game, I realized that half the party were elves and couldn't be put to sleep by magic. And I was like, oh crap, what am I going to do? But then I was like, no. Poison isn't magic. Elves can still be put to sleep by poison. So
sure.
So then I ran with the whole flower motif.
Gotcha. Oh, cool.
So I tried to have things repeat a lot because, in dreams, sometimes things repeat. Had things turn from one thing to another thing without any reason for doing so.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I'm very much sidetracking this question. I was going to mention this earlier, but I forgot to. So anyway, what makes me proud of GM is when players go off and start their own game.
Yeah, that's that's a roundabout way of him saying that.
Yes, it is. Another thing that makes me proud when proud to be a GM is when a player. A few things. There's a few things that because I've taught a lot of people to play the game. I've played with a lot of new players, and there's always a few different little steps that each one of them makes me yeah. The first one is when the player keeps their own character sheet, because so many times I'll be at a game and the game's about to end, and the player just looks at their sheet and says hey, can you hold on to this till next time? And
right.
Yeah, I can hold on to it till next time. But if you are invested enough to take it home with you.
Yeah.
Maybe to look it over, maybe to plan out your character some more, maybe to tweak some stuff because you didn't use this one ability and maybe you want to think about whether you want to keep that ability or not.
Right.
I would love that. I wouldn't necessarily want an experienced player to be constantly changing their character sheet, but if a new player is invested enough in their character to try and change things about their character, go for it. You've got some leeway.
Yeah.
Take your sheet. Do whatever you want. Another thing is when the player buys their own dice. Or just acquires their own dice.
Right.
I always have dice. I always have dice for if players need them. I'm always happy to let players use my dice. But it's a great moment when a player shows up with their own dice. Because again, that just shows that they are invested in the game. And they want to be a part of the game, so they are making it so they don't have to depend on anybody else.
Yeah, having your own dice kind of gives it, gives any role that personal touch. It's this is my dice, this is my attack, I'm doing it. Yeah. So yeah, it just gets you more into the game when you have your own dice.
Yeah.
Or several sets, all of different various shades of green.
I guess I don't know anybody that does that. And then another thing, following the same kind of trajectory here, when a player buys their own player's handbook. That's the ultimate. This player is so invested in the game that they are willing to toss down $30 or $40. Yeah. Just to make the game easier for themselves. That is so awesome. Such a great feeling when a player does that. I think
the full price now is $50 for a book. Jeez. It's ridiculous. Now, that's not to say you can't find it for cheaper. You can more than certain. I'm more than certain you can find it for at most $40. You can find it on sale or Amazon usually has some sort of discount you can put on there. But the
MSRP, I believe is $49.99. Yeah. So, so anything that shows that the player is invested enough in the game to actually care about the game when they're not at the game table. Yeah. That is just awesome. That is such a great feeling. It makes me feel like, I've done something good and I've made an impact and, it's going to be great. So yeah, to summarize, when a player starts their own game, that's awesome. And then when they keep their character sheet, when they buy their own dice, or they buy their own book. Yeah. Any of those things make me just feel awesome.
Yeah. All right. Our next question comes from Foxhound999. Wait, am I reading that upside down? It's 666. It's the sign of the... No, it's fine. That's just Foxhound. Anyway, sorry. This was on Reddit. How much say should my players have over the campaign?
Yeah. So I think they gave a few examples with this question, and the examples were in their campaign. They sat down with their players before the campaign started, and they essentially had the players make the villain, design the villain, and then design what the villain's goals were, what their character personality traits, and so on and so on. And then I think they were sort of regretting that decision, and so they were asking should players have control over the villain? Should players have control over the world map? And that sort of stuff. As primarily a player, Jeff, what is your how much input would you like to have on the campaign?
I wouldn't necessarily really want a lot of of say. You know, the less important stuff, or like the stuff that's not like too specific to the plot, or the adventure itself. Like some of like the background features in 5th edition usually have like, oh, you're part of a guild or something, or you're famous in this town, or you know, you get help from these types of people, or that sort of thing. So like maybe when you use your background features, the DM will be like, okay, you find somebody who you knew through this thing, and they're willing to help you in this little thing, and you're like, okay, and then you can give the player the option to describe that person and how they know them, and you know, if maybe they have like a secret handshake or something.
Sure.
Just little details like that that'll help them get more involved and more invested in the story without having too much control over what the story is as a whole.
Yeah.
So like little personal touches there with giving players the option to add those personal touches. I forget what it was. I feel like it was something that you mentioned. It was something I feel like we talked about a long time ago, where there was some adventure where like the DM would tell the players that like, okay, you come across a door, and there's engravings on the door. What are they? And then like the players would describe the door, and it's like, this is just a door. There's really not. Like, it's not going to have that big of a consequence of what's on the door, but if the player puts some thought into it and like makes it like, oh, there's a picture of a dragon, and he's got like a broken wing or something like that. Like he puts some detail into it, and then further down the line you might say like, oh, okay, you guys somehow stumble upon the skeleton of a dragon that looks like it has a broken wing or something like that. So you can like bring those details out later on in the adventure, because it's stuff that the players came up with, but then you can kind of use that as a little something to bring out every once in a while.
There is not a right or wrong answer to this. Every group is going to be different, and I think that there's probably even like entire RPGs where it is based around the players entirely, like crafting the villain and so on. I think that D&D might not be perfectly suited for that, but I mean, it could work. I say kind of like what you were saying. I think that the broad strokes of the campaign, like the plot and the motivations and like the main events and everything should be determined by the DM. I think pretty exclusively. But as far as details go, I think the players should be allowed to introduce whatever details they want. If a player wants to introduce an NPC, double thumbs up for me. If the player wants to describe an art fresco on the wall, cool. Maybe, again, depending on the campaign, maybe you should filter all of it through filter it all through the DM. So like, if the player says, I want there to be an NPC that is associated with this organization that I just created. I made up this organization. Can you integrate it into the world? Then the DM can look at what they had planned and then say, okay, it could fit here. And this is how they involve themselves in the adventure and so on. Or maybe if the player says like, I think that I would like it if there was an adventure that had to do with, a cult that worships dragons or something like that. Then the DM could say, okay, well, how can I use that? If there was a cult that worships dragons, they would probably be here. They would probably be doing this. And then they could build an adventure around it. I am all for, I think one of the best things that players can do is give their DM plot hooks to use.
Right, yeah.
So I definitely recommend that. As far as whether, the thing is, if you say like how much say should the players have, that almost feels like the players become the authority on whether something happens or not. And I think that, again, as like if this is D&D that we're talking about, I think that it should largely be the DM that has the final say.
Yeah. And
the DM that determines really how everything is going to fit together. But here's what I'll say. The DM should give the players opportunities. I think that's probably I don't remember what episode that was, but I definitely remember talking about that.
Yeah.
The DM should give the players opportunities to add to the world.
Yeah.
The DM should say, hey, you see an NPC coming down the road. Who is it? The DM should say, this door is decorated with carvings. What are the carvings? If players are offering those unsolicited, depending on the group, that could be okay. But I think generally speaking, most players won't. Whether they should or not, I don't know. But I doubt many players will do that, on their own.
Yeah. Unless they're playing an adventure where they're in a dream world or something.
Well, yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm just gonna ride this bike. Like, oh sure, yeah, there's a bike.
Yeah, sure. In my head, I'm picturing it as like a penny farthing. Anyway, so I think that you should let the players have as much say over your campaign. I'm speaking like to the DM here. You should let the players have as much say over the campaign as you're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. As much as you think you can integrate, the more ideas you can get from the players, the better. Try to think of it as you're getting ideas from the players and not like handing the reins to the players. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe like sort of think of it as a like suggestions box sort of situation.
Yeah.
And not a like, okay, what do we do next? You know? Like, don't let them take control of the campaign or the adventure, but let them have a say in that they make suggestions or come up with ideas that maybe they, will let you know about, before or after the adventure.
Yeah. Because, like, I feel like especially if we're talking, like, plot details, I feel like the plot would be inherently less interesting to me if I did have a hand in creating it. Just anything that I make, I find that I like less than something that I didn't make. I'm less interested in it because I already know it. You know what I mean? That being said, I think that if you did, at the beginning of the campaign, sit down with the players and say, okay, what is the main thrust of the campaign going to be? Because here's an idea that I had for a campaign a long time ago. I mentioned there's a webcomic called Earthworld. I think I either mentioned it last week or the week before, and I've mentioned it many times before, but it's a really cool world that is created in this webcomic. And in it, there was an idea that I had from reading it many, many years ago, like when the webcomic was first starting. In this webcomic, in the world that this thing takes place in, there's these like 4 really powerful artifacts. And I won't really get into them, but I was looking at them and like people had been discussing how they each sort of felt like an element, kind of like one of them was kind of like air, one of them was kind of like earth, whatever. I mean, I don't actually think that is entirely accurate, but it got me thinking, what if there was going to be a campaign where the campaign was going to be about this group of incredibly powerful artifacts? Let's say there's 4 players in the group. Let's say this is a group where we switch. I think at the time I was thinking we would like switch up DMs between sessions or something. And because I'm thinking back like when I was playing with Chris, a long time ago. We were all DMs, we were all players, so we would bounce ideas off each other and so on. And so in my mind, I was thinking, you start a campaign and you say, okay, this campaign is going to be about there's 4 of us, 4 really powerful, like epic level artifacts. Yeah. And before we start, I want each of us to come up with what one of these artifacts is going to be. And then maybe have some third party make sure no 2 people made the same thing or something. But
sure, yeah.
But basically each DM and / each player comes up with one of like the 4 main MacGuffins for the campaign, and then they are like established early on in the campaign. Maybe like players hear a legend about them or something, and then anytime someone wants to, they can pick up the plot line as long as it is in service of involving one of those artifacts. Maybe there's an adventure that someone wants to run where a bad guy has one of the artifacts, or there's an adventure where the players go in search of one of the artifacts, but it's a wild goose chase and they end up not finding it or something.
Right, or it's like a fake or something.
Sure. Or there's one where the players find one, but then it becomes too powerful and they can't control it, so they have to like hide it away somewhere or something. I think that if it were just one DM coming up with these 4 powerful artifacts and then introducing them into the game, that would be one thing. But if the players as a whole know what these things can do, that's going to make the game so much more compelling.
Sure, yeah.
Now, that's a specific example, but I think that is an example of how it could work. So if you do something that interests and involves all of the players at the most basic level, and then the players and the DM are free to do whatever they want with it as the campaign goes on, I think that could be really cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's something to try out. Maybe if you're trying to figure out what you want to do for the next campaign, sit your players down and say, hey, let's work out what this next campaign is going to be about. And then if it is just one DM, which it probably will be, then they can filter everything through their own sensibilities and everything and take the stuff they came up with the players, maybe turn some of the things on their head or do some things that sort of play with the players' expectations of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like if they establish, okay, there's going to be a villain that does this, introduce that villain, but have him be a good guy. And then maybe there's a point in the campaign where something happens and he becomes evil or something. You know, I kind of had an issue with this when I first ran my first campaign ever. I was, you know, I had no idea what I was doing. And I, not that this is a bad thing, but I was talking with our friend Jay, who was going to be a player in this campaign. And I basically told him all of the ideas I had for the campaign, you know, because I needed somebody to talk to. I was like, hey, how does this sound? But then when we got to actually playing it, he started using all of that knowledge to his advantage.
Sure.
And it made things really difficult for me. Now, that was largely because I was a terrible DM, but you know, don't do it unless you feel comfortable doing it, because players might use it in a way you weren't expecting, and it might kind of throw everything off a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but I definitely think that you should try to give your players as much say as you feel comfortable and see what they do with it.
Yeah.
I guarantee you they'll do some stuff that will surprise you.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for our regular questions for today. Now we're going to talk about our social media discussion questions. Last week was our Halloween episode, so I didn't really plan this out super well. But anyway, the question that we had was, you have to play through an RPG based on the horror movie of your choice. What movie do you choose and why?
Yeah, I couldn't think of one, although I was reading some of the submissions some people had, and there was a couple that I was like, oh yeah, of course. That's totally what. So
sure.
we'll get to those when those come up. But
sure.
What did you say?
And then I think my example was Saw, because I think that you could make a really good character-driven, exploration-based, puzzle-based, trap-based, adventure.
Yeah, traps and puzzles, and like character development and stuff like that. That'd be cool. Yeah.
So we only got a few responses on each platform, so I think we'll probably go through all of them on air. But the first one from Scott N on Facebook, one of the Saw movies. Who doesn't like deadly puzzles?
Right.
So, hey, thumbs up for me. The next one, Jonathan S, said The Thing, which I think is a great example.
Yeah, because the thing, it's like it's possessing their bodies and stuff.
Well, have you seen The Thing?
I vaguely know about it, but it's like that. It is like they've taken over their bodies, or they made like duplicates of it or something?
Yeah, so it is there's a research team in Antarctica. They encounter some sort of a creature that can like replicate, or it can like infect and then become people. So like the whole movie is you don't know who's a thing and who's a person.
Right.
And even by the end of the movie, like you still don't, of the survivors, you don't know.
Yeah, you can't be sure.
Who's a person, who isn't. Maybe everybody is now a thing. Doesn't matter. Who knows? Anyway, so yeah, he said, The Thing, I really enjoy the paranoia of not knowing who to trust until it comes to a painful death for you. So yeah, I think that's a great answer.
Yeah.
Dan W says, The Mist. It could be a survival horror game where you have to fortify the convenience store, rally the people in there, and then do runs to the surrounding areas to gather resources to make your final escape, all whilst being set upon by a myriad of extra-dimensional creatures.
Right. Oh,
very good.
That's Stephen King one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
And oh my goodness, that
ending. I think I remember watching it at your place years ago.
Yeah. I won't spoil anything. That's one of those movies where the ending, your jaw's going to drop and you're just going to sit there with like your hand on the side of your face like, huh.
Yeah. It's very just like it, like, yeah, you kind of forget about all the details of the movie except for that ending, and you're just like, huh.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, so those were all of them on Facebook. On Twitter, Collins B says, using the Grimtooth's Traps collection, I've run a Saw-themed one-shot, which was about what you'd expect. But I'd love to play an Alien campaign as a player.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so like a horror game.
Yeah.
That's obviously horror, that's the thing. Like a scary monster that like you basically can't deal with in normal circumstances. Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah. And if you are interested in an Alien RPG, let me direct you to the film Reroll. They did Alien.
Oh, cool.
And I keep singing the praises of Paolo on the show. because he didn't know who was going to be actually infected by the alien at the beginning of the movie. Like it wasn't guaranteed to go like it was in the movie.
Right.
He came up with different types of xenomorphs depending on who gets infected.
Oh, neat.
Because in the first movie, there's like somebody makes a comment about how the alien is like the quote unquote child of the guy that infected. And so what Paolo took from that is that it had some traits of the host. And so depending on who got infected, the resulting alien would have slightly different abilities.
That's cool.
So, anyway. Go check that out. I am Carlos on Twitter says, not a horror, but one of the movies that scared me the most was The Road with Viggo Mortensen. The book was even more graphic. But a survival-based RPG where avoidance of conflict is as scary as entering it. So I've never seen The Road, but sounds interesting. If the whole point is like avoiding conflict and stuff, I think that's something that some D&D players could use some lessons in.
Sure, yeah.
On Reddit, Wolf in a Suit said, Jason, I think he means Friday the 13th, but I'll give him that one.
Yeah.
You try to complete tasks to help escape from camp, and the GM rolls a percentile die every so often to see if Jason finds you, and you must now escape before he gets you. Jason's the only enemy, but you can't defeat him. Maybe even set a time limit. If you don't escape from camp in 1 hour, there's no escape, and you can run, but you can't hide. And for that, I will direct you to the Friday the 13th video game, which is very, very good, and it is exactly that.
Yeah. There's also that one is specifically Friday the 13th, but there's Dead by Daylight is another good one.
Sure.
But that one uses more like they're not exactly the characters, but there is a very much like, this character is very much like Jason, or this character is very much like Freddy.
I think there are some that are like, there is Michael Myers.
Yeah,
I think Freddy is in it. I could be wrong. Anyway, some of them are licensed for that game, but then other ones are just generic.
Yeah,
kind of like this. I've heard good things about Dead by Daylight, but the reason that I play Friday the 13th is because I love the camp.
Yeah,
I love the things that Friday the 13th does, and so for me, Friday the 13th is much more what I'm.
There's a lot more. Yeah, there's a lot more details and like care into the
and like player teamwork and communication and stuff. From what I understand, you can't communicate with each other in Dead by Daylight.
You can. It's but it's like I mean, like you can always just use
I guess
outside voice voice stuff, but there is in-game voice, but it's like you have to be near them to hear them and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess that's what it is in Friday the 13th. Anyway. 00 Jiminy Cricket says, I'm not a huge horror movie person, so this isn't a classic horror option, but I do an adventure along the lines of the Reavers from Firefly.
Oh, neat.
Great suggestion with that as well. I'm sure there's a couple Firefly RPGs, isn't there?
Yeah, there's at least two.
Yeah.
There was one based on the show, one based on the movie, I think.
Gotcha. Anyway, then over on Discord, Mason says Cabin in the Woods for variety of enemies.
That's the one I was like, oh, of
double
course.
thumbs up. Thumbs up. That is so good.
Because it's so seeped in pop culture and stuff like that it's like that plays so well into games like D&D.
Yeah. Then Adam B says, I would love to play through any of the Hannibal Lecter movies purely for the tension and the chance to outthink Hannibal.
Yeah, that one I liked too. I just I was like, yeah, I wouldn't really consider that a horror movie. It's a thriller, but like that that works really well. Like that, there are horror themes in it for sure. Like it is not it's not really a feel good movie. It's I was scared of it when I was younger.
Sure.
I got creeped out by it when I was a little kid. So I wasn't supposed to be watching it.
The very first time I saw The Little Mermaid, I got scared by it.
Yeah,
when I was a little kid.
There's the shark scene's pretty scary.
I guess I think it was Ursula scared me or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was scared by the weirdest stuff. Anyway, That's Sketchy says House of 1,000 Corpses for all the gnarly twists. You think it's over? Nope. There's still 999 corpses. I added that last part. I've actually never seen House of 1,000 Corpses.
Not me neither.
Yeah, I mean it's Rob Zombie. I'm sure it's probably.
Oh sure.
I've heard it's his best one of the horror movies that he did around that time. Avon Schill says, how about 13 ghosts with multiple encounters and multiple types of monsters with someone in the background trying to complete a ritual of sorts? That is a great suggestion. That movie is so. I want to say so video gamey, but it's not even. it doesn't have to be a video game. It's so gamey in like the best way possible.
I remember when I saw it when I was younger, I really liked it because it was very much like, oh, I could definitely see this in a game or something.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure that exact thought didn't come into my mind, but I was like, that was the coolest movie ever, you know, but
right.
Really, and then you go and look at like the Rotten Tomatoes score on it, and you're just like, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I guess it's not that good of a movie.
Right.
So saith the internet.
Yeah, no, but I thought it was a good movie, and that I think that would make a great role-playing game, honestly.
Yeah.
And then finally, Preston Penguin R says, Evil Dead. I think there may already be one. I love the series, and I find it so bleak. It would be a great setting for serious tension and possible scares if a tabletop RPG can actually be scary, which we did talk about last week, but that episode was not out when all of these questions went up. So, I know that there was an Army of Darkness role-playing game. I used to have a PDF of it. I don't know if there was ever one made that was explicitly Evil Dead. Army of Darkness being the basically the fantasy movie in the series.
Right. Was that the third movie?
It's the third movie. The character of Ash goes back in time to medieval times and has to fight off a bunch of zombies. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Evil Dead, I think if there is an RPG, I'm sure it's great, and now I want to play it. But if there isn't one, I'm sure there could be one. It could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So great answers all around. Great, nice Halloween themed answers. Now that it is not yet Halloween for us recording, these have all put me in the Halloween mood. So yeah. So our question for this week: whose bike is in my driveway? No. That's not actually a question. I was trying to come up with a question today. We went to go get a pizza, one of those Detroit style pizzas.
Oh yeah,
around the corner. We're pulling on the driveway, and one of my wife's friends chained up her bike in the driveway. Like 2 weeks ago, and hasn't come back to get it yet. And so I was asking I was trying to come up with what the social media discussion question was going to be, and I was like, whose bike is in the driveway? Anyway.
Oh, that's a good one. All right,
that's a good one. Yeah. Whose bike is in? No. Yeah. The question is, do you ever use poisons or diseases in your game? Now, we did have an episode a long time ago about how to make diseases and curses interesting.
Right.
But, we haven't really talked much about poisons. We could talk more about diseases, I guess. So let us know. Do you ever use poisons or diseases in your game? Yeah. If so, how often? What kind of an impact have they had? I just feel like in the games that I've played, they're only ever a thing for you encounter something that has a poison or disease, and then once the encounter's over, you deal with it, and then it's never much of an issue.
Yeah. Or it could be really bad for the players. It's if they get hit with a monster, hit by a monster that has some sort of poison effect or something, and it just ends up doing way more damage because that's just extra dice rolls that you have to deal with.
Sure.
So I feel like, there are some types of creatures that have poison effects or lingering poison sort of effects that can really be bad for players, and they might not have the means to deal with it immediately.
Yeah.
But you might just have a paladin in your group, and they're like, 5 points of my
that's
lay on hands. And
I feel like that is always the case. You've either got a paladin or a cleric, and then it was a non-issue.
Yeah.
So
it's it could. I don't know. Maybe maybe have poison effects be less obvious or something.
Maybe. But I mean, it's unless you are rolling the dice on the save. If a player gets attacked by the enemy, and then you tell them, make a Constitution save, and then they roll a 3 or something, someone is going to remember that by the time the encounter is over.
Right.
And they're going to try to deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying they can't be good, but in my opinion, in my experience, they're never a huge deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, let us know, listeners. Do you use them, and how much do they impact the game?
Sure.
All right, well, that'll finish out our questions for today. So before we end the episode, I think that we should let's relax, let's sit back, let's take a deep breath with all this candy in the room, so you're getting all the sugar in through your lungs. Chocolatey.
Delicious.
And let's toss another log onto the funeral pyre. Our funeral pyre story for this week was submitted by Reddit user Dongface. I imagine they like bells, So
Yeah. Oh, sure.
ding dong.
Right.
face.
Right. Yeah. Obviously.
So this Reddit user says, newly minted magic user. Slept up a tree to avoid dangerous flightless birds. Didn't strap myself in and fell in my sleep. 1d6 damage versus 1d4 hit points.
Oh.
So I'm guessing this is probably an earlier edition of the game.
Right.
3rd edition at the latest, but since they said magic user, I'm guessing probably 1st or 2nd edition.
Yeah. Yeah. You were, it was like a 1d4 hit point.
Yeah.
Total. Or jeez. I remember for a 2nd edition character, I had 3 hit points. It wasn't he was like a ranger.
Yeah.
I just rolled really bad for the hit points. But that's, nowadays it's like you always get maximum on your first level.
Yeah. Ever since 3rd edition, that's been. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, jeez.
So I think Jeff, let's raise a glass in memory of the magic user who should have invested in Constitution. Clink. Because more hit points.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that'll do it for today. So to submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com. Join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict, on Twitter at InPartyConflict, or our Discord for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you'd like to support the show, check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, you want to tell us about FriendQuest?
Come find us on YouTube. We are FriendQuest. We play video games. Please subscribe. We also have a Twitch account now. It's twitch.tv/FriendQuestStream, all one word. Should still be able to view our last stream that was up there where we played Red Dead Redemption 2.
Cool.
But also be putting that on the YouTube soon. So check us out. And then maybe we should have Gabe play God of War on there.
Ooh.
Show everybody how awesome it is.
We'll have to see. We'll
see. All right.
All right. And I have a little side project that I've been working on called the Arcade Memories Podcast. You can find that on iTunes or SoundCloud. And if you have any childhood memories of going to the arcade, send those to me in an email. Either record it by yourself or send me the text at arcadememoriespodcast@gmail.com. And head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show. What you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games, courtesy of Mary and Tom over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games, from Nameless to Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, until next time.
Well, Gabe, I hope you're proud of yourself.
I am. Thank you.
Good.